Hello, and welcome back to the Social Good Instigators podcast. Most of us work in environments that are in constant flux. It's the sign of our times, right? In this episode, Jason Steinberg shares some stories and advice from the unpredictable environment of a refugee camp.
Welcome to the Social Good Instigators podcast, where your host, Kirsten Bullock, interviews leaders of social entrepreneurship ventures who share what's working. Please add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hi, Jason. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Kirsten. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Jason is the founder of International Sports and Music Project, which uses sports and music to uplift people facing hardship around the world. They provide sports equipment and musical instruments to schools, and Jason will share a little bit more about that in a minute. But just a couple of interesting tidbits about Jason. First, he's just 25 years old, and he's already positively impacting hundreds of lives of refugees and others around the world. And in addition to speaking English, he also speaks Spanish and Swahili. So I'm a little curious, how did you learn Swahili?
I'm not fluent or anything, but I do enjoy trying to learn languages. My experience is that you can really only get so far, doing work somewhere if you can't communicate with someone in their native language. But I had really enjoyed Spanish in high school and ended up not needing any more Spanish classes for college and had some free space and was already planning a trip to East Africa and taking some classes on, African culture and thought it would be interesting to take Swahili, and I saw it was offered, and I'm really happy I did. My professor was this older, sage-like Congolese man who would teach us these Swahili proverbs that really stuck with me. And he was an amazing guy, and I learned a lot from him. That's how I got into the world of Swahili.
Wow. So could you kick us off by sharing a few more words about International Sports and Music Project and the types of work that you do?
Sure. So after I graduated from college, I moved to a small island called Pohnpei in the region of Micronesia in the Pacific. It's a kind of a long story how I got there, but I was teaching English and high school English, and my high school students really wanted to start a basketball team, but we didn't have any resources. They showed up to their first practice with just no sneakers on, wearing flip-flops or playing barefoot. And we played for a couple hours, and by the end they were kind of bloody. They had bloody feet, and they had to walk home for some of them up to 10 miles back to their village because they had passed up their bus ride home to come to basketball practice. And the next day they all showed up again, ready to play practice, ready to do that same thing. And
wow,
we realized that, that wasn't sustainable, but obviously these kids loved playing basketball. And so we started fundraising, and people were really generous, and people came out and started donating. And, at the same time I was starting to teach music lessons, and, again, found kids that were really talented and really passionate, but didn't have all the necessary resources to have a sustainable, program for them. So I got home with this notion that there must be kids, all around the world who are in that same situation that could benefit just from some help with getting sneakers or getting guitars. And with some help from some friends and some professors and a whole slew of interesting people, we started the International Sports and Music Project.
How fun. What kinds of projects have you run since then?
That was back in 2014. And so since then, each year we've continued on with our Micronesia basketball program. But we've also expanded into two other partnerships. We help run music classes and a basketball program at an orphanage in Rwanda, in Kigali, Rwanda. We started that a little more than a year ago. And then most recently, we launched our third partnership, which is a soccer program and music classes at a Syrian refugee camp in Greece. So we're now focusing on strengthening the partnerships we have and making them more effective and more sustainable, and constantly learning and trying to grow. And we have some interest from some other partners around the world who want to start sports and programs, but we're taking it slowly and making sure that we're doing it the right way. And eventually we'll move into other places and try to give as many people as possible the opportunity to enjoy sports or to learn an instrument and be able to play.
Great. And some people might look at sports and music and think, well, that's kind of an optional thing. But you were sharing earlier that there are a lot of other benefits that come from sports and music. Could you share a little bit more about those?
Absolutely. So I definitely understand that viewpoint. But the thing is, with things like food or water, medicine, those will make you be alive, but those won't make you feel alive. And when you're someone who, for example, is living at a refugee camp, there isn't all that much to do. And boredom may sound like not such a bad problem to have in the grand scheme of things, but when you've just had to leave your family, when your home has just been destroyed, when you've dealt with 2 or 3 or 4 different boat rides to different countries, to different camps, now you're in a foreign country by yourself, without your family, stuck, not really knowing when you're going to be able to leave, to go to another foreign country where you'll again have to start over. You're in the middle of a very traumatic time of your life. Many people are dealing with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, and they have a lot going on in their lives. And so having an expressive outlet, which is what music and sports are, is actually very, very important, because the mental health of people in these difficult situations is not being cared about in a holistic way. There's very little opportunity to have verbal therapy at camp, and many studies show that the verbal therapy for someone going through such traumatic situations often won't be as effective as giving someone something that they really love to do, to be a part of a team, to kick a soccer ball, as hard as they can at a net, or to take a guitar by themselves up into the mountains and just be able to play and just be able to use that as that release, and to have something to do when they wake up in the morning, something to look forward to. The benefits are through the roof, and we've seen it help kids in school, help kids be more attentive, help kids be better students, help kids be more confident. And it's also just something that allows people to have something that they can enjoy, which those opportunities are not very frequent, for some of the communities that we're partnered up with.
Right. So when you landed on the ground for this project this summer, did you have a pretty clear idea of what your programs were going to be?
Well, we thought we did, but we also knew that it was going to be a dynamic situation, and we knew that some of our expectations were going to not come to fruition. And we tried our best, and I think we actually did as good a job as we could have done of sticking to our big goals without being so attached to the little goals, to the actual path it took to reach those goals. So we came in with the goal of, we want to give people here who want it the opportunity to play music, the opportunity to play soccer, which we knew going in was a very popular sport at camp, but that people didn't really have a place to play. They didn't have a field. Most people didn't have jerseys or shoes or balls. And so, we thought, things would go one way, and it was a constantly evolving and constantly changing pattern, but within that same framework of, we have these goals. We want to give people these opportunities, and we're going to do whatever it takes to give them the opportunity, but we're going to do it in a way that works for this particular community. We don't want to go into any community with too many assumptions. We want to go in with a big goal, with a big assumption, which is that sports and music can have a meaningful impact on someone's life. And then we want to start asking questions. We want to start talking to people. We want to start having conversations with the community to become their partner and to learn from them, so that we can teach each other, and so that we can come up with a program that's going to be meaningful and also built to last, because it was built by the people that it is intended to serve.
Mm-hmm. So what were some of the things that surprised you as you started moving through it? Had you gone in knowing that you would want to partner with people, or was that with the residents, or did that evolve as you were trying to implement programs?
We definitely knew that we wanted to work alongside residents of the camp. at all our partners, we try to keep it run as much by locals, as much by the people in the community as possible. But lots of things were surprising. I mean, for one, it's just hard to know what it's like at a refugee camp until you go and you live there. And then you can start to see all the different challenges, things as, like some people would come and leave. You never knew when new residents were going to arrive or when certain residents were going to finally get their asylum and leave. There's several different languages spoke at camp. The camp's in Greece, so some of the organizations speak Greek. Some of the residents speak English, but most of them speak either Arabic or Kurdish. And so the language barriers made something that should be simple, such as just having a meeting to talk about, okay, who wants to sign up to play soccer, a bit more challenging. Also, just the emotions that you see coming from people, particularly as they pertain to soccer. Soccer is really, really important to these people. It's a huge game in Syria, and the emotion is just palpable. So even in those initial meetings, people's emotions were raised. And so when there's 30 or 40, adults that are all ready to play soccer, that are, want it so badly, but they want to make sure they're on a good team, and they realize that this is an opportunity, a cool opportunity to do something that they really love, and they start getting a little bit excited, and that can make things challenging also. Now, I never thought excitement would be such a big challenge, but when you've got so many people with different languages, with different things going on in their lives, it can be. Other challenges that came up that we didn't expect were things pertaining to, NGO politics, of just the different organizations at camp all having their own agenda and perhaps being a little bit protective of their own agenda, or also just needing to get approval from the International Organization of Migration in order to build a field, because the camp's located on an Air Force base, a Greek Air Force base. All these little things that come up, and the lesson that I learned is just roll with the punches. Do not let those things out of your control bring you down and stop your momentum, because they have the potential to do that. You work really hard at something. You're researching a field for 2 weeks because they told you could build it. And then the last day you're about to press the send button on that last email, and you get a call. Oh, well, actually, we figured out that you can't do this because someone else wants to do that. Or, at that point, it's easy to freeze up and be like, this was a mistake coming here. But no, it's not a mistake. It's a learning process. And by just rolling with the punches and focusing on the things you can control and doing the best job you can of doing those things, of knowing what you can control, knowing what you can't control, knowing the difference, and spending your time really getting right what you have the power to get right, and just adapting, and you figure out a way to make it work.
So what did you do after you got the email and said that the soccer field wouldn't work?
Well, we did a few things. We went out and got shoes that were a bit more versatile, shoes that could be worn on this concrete area of the camp that some of the kids would play soccer, but also would work on the really rough gravel that we've been playing on, and would hopefully work if we ever were to be able to get a dirt field or a turf field. We started negotiating with local fields in town to say, all right, how much would it take to bus our players over to play against some local Greek teams, which is something that we actually haven't done yet, because we ended up being able to make a field in a different part of camp because things just constantly change there. But we're still actually going to do that in the next month or so, because we feel like it's a cool way for residents to be able to get away from camp and just kind of bridge some gaps with them in the local Greek community. But you do whatever you can. And so for us, we focused our shoes on making sure people would be prepared to play safely no matter what happened with the field. And we started focusing more on the organizational side of things. Okay, how are we making teams? How are we dividing this up? How are we scheduling a tournament? Just doing everything we could do to be really prepared once we figured out where exactly we were going to play. And you just have to kind of try to do everything at once and hope that the timing will work out. And luckily for us, the timing did work out. And now we do have a field, and we have jerseys, and we have shoes. And now it's just about making it more sustainable and making it even safer and even more effective and reliable. So you just got to keep rolling with the punches.
Right. Any other examples that you can think of a challenge that you ran into and you had to adjust and change your approach?
Yeah, there's a bunch.
I'm sure.
Let's see if I can think of one as it pertains to music. I mean, we didn't really have a place to play music. We wanted to have music lessons, but first arriving, there wasn't really a great space, and we would experiment with different spaces. We would play outside, but then, all the little kids would come running up in the middle of class and start, wanting to play the guitars, and you couldn't, keep people focused and keep it contained. And then we didn't really know what to do. But then we started kind of just talking to all the different organizations and seeing where exactly would make for a good place. And luckily we were able to partner up with a pretty cool organization. We knew going in we were going to be partnering with them on certain things called 100 Echo Plus, and they distribute water and they distribute clothes at the refugee camp. But they also have this big warehouse. And first they let us, use one piece of their this little caravan they had outside, but it wasn't really great because again there were these big windows, and the teenage boys would come and knock on the windows and kind of disrupts the class a lot. But finally, we found two really good places to work by partnering up with other organizations. We partnered up with an organization called Lighthouse that has a teen center, and we started doing classes in their teen center twice a week for the teenagers. And then we figured out a good part of the Echo warehouse that they let us use, and we were able to do it then. And now we're exploring options of getting our own caravan, which is not something we would have known we needed to do going in. So it was a big learning experience, but it seemed like every day things would change. Every day, okay, this space is no longer in use. This schedule is changing. These people who were supposed to be at this meeting or come to this class, they left. They moved into a different part of camp. Yes, you can build a field. No, you can't build the field. Just all kinds of things changing all the time, plus all the emotions of the players and such. I mean, there were a few times where people were getting so emotional about soccer that it was bad. It was causing uneasiness where one team in the middle.
Is that emotion like anger or excitement, or what type of emotion?
It's everything. Okay. It runs the gamut, and I believe it's a testament to how much it means to them. I mean, it's excitement when you get, shoes and a jersey. It's excitement when you win a game and when you're practicing with your team. It's like real, honest excitement. And then in a game when you're losing, or if someone on your team messes up and you're frustrated, or in one game that I was refereeing, one team thought the refereeing was just awful, and they were so frustrated with me. They're like, we're not finishing the game. This is unfair. This is unfair. You're favoring them. And, I was close with these people. They knew I wasn't favoring the other team. They were just very frustrated. And finally they calmed down. But in that moment, what do we do? Like, this is going poorly. They're so angry. But you just talk to people. You just listen. You let people say what they want to say. You let them get their emotion out, and then you move forward. And by the end of the conversation, this huge guy who was, kind of yelling came over to me and gave me this kind of like double cheek kiss, which is this thing that a lot of the residents do. I guess that's big in Kurdish communities or in Syria. And was just like invited me to come smoke hookah with him, which is another cultural thing, and was just like, listen, I'm sorry, but we've been looking forward to this for a long time, and soccer is just really important to us. I learned that things are not always going to appear the way you want them to. Like you decide to start a nonprofit, you're going to a refugee camp. Some people might build up this weird, like, oh, there's going to be kids like running up and thanking me all the time. Of course not. Of course, that's not what it's going to be. And so you learn to really appreciate those little moments where, okay, everyone's fired up, everyone's kind of angry, yelling, whatever, but then this guy kind of explains it all to you of like, listen, this is just really important to us. And it kind of all came together that we're doing what we intended to do. We're giving people an emotional outlet. We're giving something for people to buy into, to put their heart and their energy and their concentration on. And because they are going through so much stuff, and because it's important to them, that soccer is important to them, those emotions are going to come out, the good ones and the bad ones. But that's a healthy place for those emotions to come out. We want to see that, because it means that they're not going back and having those bad emotions in some other less healthy way, which, you hear about all the time, people being unsafe, to their bodies and things like that because they're going through such depression. Having this place to go be frustrated and be excited and yell and scream and run around, I think is really, really important.
Right. Very therapeutic. So
yeah, absolutely.
You've been back from your trip for a little while. Have you had a chance to think through, and is there possibly any closing words or a nugget that you might have to share as a closing for our listeners?
Yeah, I would just say stay humble and stay focused. It's a constant learning process of how to do this and how to engage and have an impact, and also at the same time to not inadvertently do harm along the way. And so, if you're undertaking an ambitious endeavor, whether it's in your business or your nonprofit or what have you, stay humble, ask questions, don't be afraid of criticism, take all the criticism and don't let it, hurt your feelings. Just take it and run with it, and focus on the things you can control, and keep believing that you're going to be successful, and keep a good grip on reality at the same time. And that combination of having that grip on reality, but also being confident in yourself, is a good recipe for success.
That sounds fantastic. Well, thank you, Jason, so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait to listen to all these other interviews that I haven't been able to get to yet.
Fantastic. Well, and thanks to all our listeners for everything you do to make the world a better place.
Thanks for listening to the Social Good Instigators podcast with Kirsten Bullock. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll check out our prior episodes, and that you'll pass along our web address, socialgoodinstigators.com, to your friends and colleagues in the social good sector.